Um, so those years passed, but those years were also years when we had a new formation of what was called the women's movement, which is the NGO community. And the NGO community, where you do good works 9 to 5 and get paid for it, um, sort of took away from the spontaneous women's movement. We lost some members. We got into a confused state of where what is paid activism as opposed to unpaid activism, what is voluntary, what is not voluntary, and also we lost let's say the jazba of the movement. So NGOs globally, I won't go too much into NGOs, but globally NGOs have been designed actually for civil society has been designed to be a part of the new liberal, new imperialism, and really for the NGOs to work with the government and not against the government. There's collaboration, there's co-optation, there's partnerships, etc. And then the NGOs got bigger and bigger and became almost like entities unto themselves who would further fund other NGOs. That's at the point where we who were also registered, not Women's Action Forum, but we as USER were registered as an NGO, but we decided to opt out of that because we couldn't do whatever was being done or said or being told to do. NGOs, donors decided what issue to take up, how it should be taken up, how many trainings you should have, what you needed to do with it. This is so when we look at the women's movement, and there's a debate on this, do we see it in phases? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 4, whatever, 4. I actually see it as a continuum. I see it as moments of activism and then moments when the activism has led to some results and women are using those spaces. But it doesn't mean that they're using the spaces, so they're using the women's movement in a different way. But the women's movement has impacted them in a different way. It has made those spaces. So we, pre-partition, we had some women's movement, we had women's groups picking up the issue of inheritance rights, of family laws, of voting. After partition, we had a similar movement. We had a Women's Rights Committee, a Women's Rights Charter, and they were asking for change for the Constitution to reflect this. The Constitution should reflect this, and the 56th Constitution did. It did give women equal rights. Women were equal citizens in the state of Pakistan, which is what women were fighting for. The other thing they were fighting for was women's seats, and that's probably the only constitution in the world where it gave women 2 votes, one for women's seats and one for general seats. Not that many for women's seats, it was 5 in East Pakistan, 5 in West Pakistan. But the principle was that you could actually have women's seats, etc., elected by women. That has never come up again. General Ayub Khan abrogated that in the constitution, so we never know what happened to that. But then he passed the family law ordinance, which was based on the Women's Rights Charter prior to him coming in which there are some conditions for second marriage. There's maintenance, there's divorce, there's khula. It did actually give women some rights, the family law ordinance. I would take this as a, I personally would take this as a second phase. The third phase was Women's Action Forum. And if we look at this, and I digress a little here, that the those women who were active prior to partition were very much from the elite. They were in fact Nawab's daughters, and Begum Bhopal and Begum Junagar, etc., and other women. But women were very active in the independence movement, in the Pakistan movement, and in the left movement. They had been on strikes, demonstrations, jail, etc. So there was an energy in the women's movement. Um, but then we had this period where we're going for the constitution and the law's inheritance, etc. And then we have Women's Action Forum after Ziaul Haq comes in. The next stage is the NGOs, where the women's movement, including Women's Action Forum, got decimated. It there was a confusion. Are NGOs part of the movement? Are they not part of the movement? Are they what work are they doing? Are they doing work that will feed into the movement, etc.? So there was a real, confusion and debates, etc., on this issue for the next 10 years more. And as part of this, we got Musharraf. So Musharraf opened up more spaces. He was not a liberal man. I mean, he was a liberal person, personally liberal, but his government was very authoritarian. But he opened up spaces like under Ziaul Haq, we couldn't dance, women couldn't sing, women couldn't be on the stage, women couldn't be in theatre. Public stage, we had been relegated to doing it in our own homes. But now we've got the Alhambra, we've got public spaces, etc. He opened up all of that, and he opened up the media. This is when the channel galore come on. So he was considered a very, what he called enlightened moderation. And he was considered that. And a lot of women, a lot of people, women included, supported him. They supported him partly because they were so disgusted with Nawaz Sharif, but more than that, they were thrilled with the sort of space was, that he was giving. And many got involved with him. Many became ministers in his cabinet and advisors, etc., because they thought that this is a turning point. Women's Action Forum didn't. There were 6 organizations that particularly took a stand that we reject this military coup. We rejected, we know what Nawaz was doing, but one had to get rid of him through a democratic way. So there was the period of Musharraf, and then there was lull again. And when the lawyers' movement started in 2007, that is when young people whom we didn't think were ready to come out, a lot of young people came out. A lot of young people got involved in that. A lot of study groups started. A lot of small groups started. A lot of activism started. Students got together, not as unions, but to strive to um, demand unions. There was a new upsurge of leftists. I mean, you'll find many young people now calling each other comrade. But this is a new thing. A new thing may not new, but it's of recent origin. Those young people are the ones who are part of Aurat March and other formulations. And they are the ones who they had the advantage. I mean, we had the disadvantage that we didn't have phones, we didn't have cars, we didn't have But the advantage we had was that we lived, the hall was much smaller. So we lived in area that we could get in touch with each other or, share a rickshaw or whatever. Now you have a new Aurat March. There's a different level of background. There's a different, many of them have been educated in private schools, in private universities, in public universities, which are getting better. There was anyway, I'll move on to the key thing between Aurat March and Women's Action Forum. The feminism says the political is the personal is political. Now, there are two meanings that come out of this. Some people interpret this as what is personal in your life is has political implications, even if you are quiet and silent. If you're silent and not involved, that also impacts politics. And if you are obviously speaking, that impacts politics. The other way of looking at it is that the domestic sphere and the public sphere is not separate from each other. It's a continuum. Um, Women's Action Forum had never really picked up the issue of sexuality and marriage. It had a draconian government where even saying the slightest thing about women's sexuality, although the state was obsessed with women's sexuality. This is in our ordinance, what they wear, etc. But we hadn't taken it up. But Aurat March did. Aurat March brought up the whole issue of personal oppression within the home, domestic oppression, harassment of women, violence against women, although Women's Action Forum also was very preoccupied with violence against women. But they, and you see it reflected in their placards. Mera Jisam Meri Barzi, which became a big thing for apna khana khud garam karo. These are harmless things that saying a lot, and they got a lot of flack on these. They continue to get flack on this. But I noticed a change this March 8th. They were all saying Mera Jisam Meri Barzi, and there was no negative. There may have been negative on TikTok or whatever, but there was no negative response in the rally itself. So the question that comes up is that whereas they're picking up these cases and they are preoccupied with the personal, a lot of it has to do with harassment. They talk about harassment, they work on harassment, they do legal cases on harassment. But where they don't look at harassment, what they don't do, which Women's Action Forum did, Women's Action Forum didn't pick up the personal, but it picks up the public. So it would go to court. It would raise it at the issue of the court level. It would raise it at the level of parliament to get the laws passed and then to get it implemented. I find my experience, and I'm a member of Aurat March Lahore, my experience, it doesn't go beyond talking about the harassment and the individual cases of harassment. It doesn't go like there is a harassment law, accessing that. One or two of them do, several do, but by and large they don't do anything to improve that law. If the ombudsperson, her position is empty and the government hasn't engaged somebody, then it stays like that. There's no voice coming from March 8th that somebody should be appointed. The other similar things that I can think of at this moment is that the Aurat March respects gender fluidity much more than Women's Action Forum does. I think Women's Action Forum has never really discussed it. But they do. But on the other hand, in recently, the Federal Sharia Court said that our law, which is a very good law, because our law says that you can change your gender based on your how you define it, self-definition. Federal Sharia Court has contested that and said that no, you can't self-define it. You have to have the right organs and the right physical structure and the right sort of whatever they are looking for. And it's not the ones who have gone to court, to the Supreme Court, has been Women's Election Forum. So whereas they take it up to the point of personally including them in their marches, personally reaching out to, especially transgender, and you'll find also that male to female transgender has become a sort of norm. You get one person to show that your diversity or your fluidity, etc. But you don't have, I mean, in my experience, you have nobody who stands up and says, I'm a lesbian. And lesbians are the most curtailed because they really are a threat to the family. If you have to, if everyone becomes a lesbian, you have no marriage and you have no family and you have no children. So that is considered a threat, not only in Pakistan, but in many countries, etc., including sometimes in the States, it's considered that. So it's where a woman gets agency over her whole body and her own sexuality. So this is something that they try to control and try to. But as I said, that we have not discussed neither March 8th nor Women's Action Forum discussed the issue of lesbianism, which I would have thought would be the first thing we would be discussing, and also female to male transsexuals. We have female to male, but they are not the ones who are privileged or who come to our events, etc. There's more that the acceptance of, let's say, male to female. What I want to share with you for the next 5 minutes is we started the Institute of Women's Studies in 1987 with short courses, and I just want to read out the definition that we had. And then short courses, and then it went to a 3-month semester, postgraduate semester, and open to women in Pakistan and abroad. We had a lot of international students. The idea was that those who didn't have the opportunity to go abroad or to have the best of abroad coming, so we would invite faculty from abroad, from Harvard, from Yale, to come for a week and teach a course. So that was it was a successful program. The way we defined it is that women's studies as a field of study evolved out of what is commonly known as the second wave of feminism in the 1980s. Its aim is to arrive at a holistic understanding of the historical, social, political, and economic oppression and exploitation of women as a necessary step in the transformation of unjust societies. Women's studies, therefore, has the potential to enable an awareness and consciousness not only to patriarchy but of class, race, and other factors underlying oppression. In this interdisciplinary by definition, women's studies is best conceptualized as a mode of inquiry that puts women at the center of analysis rather than as a discipline that entrenched boundaries. In fact, the chief goal of women's studies is to overcome the fragmentation and barriers between disciplines in a bid to disprove the idea that social, political, personal, and material realities are separate spheres of human existence. Women's studies seeks to critique, challenge, and redress masculine modes of knowledge production across the sciences, social sciences, applied sciences, arts, and humanities. In distortions in knowledge produced about women, women's studies identifies, reclaims, and celebrates the lives, experiences, and contributions of women and other marginalized peoples. As this women-centered knowledge is produced, alternative methodologies and theories are formulated that call into question the very fundamental underpinning mainstream for mainstream knowledge, the opposition of knowledge to experience, of objectivity to subjectivity, and to theory and action. Women's studies then redefines what counts as knowledge, how knowledge is portrayed, and the parameters within which scholars and resources operate to produce knowledge. This is actually from our prospectus that we would send out to people who wanted to apply. It was a very rigorous course. It was a very difficult course because we had different faculty coming in. It was entirely residential, even if you were in Lahore. In Lahore, faculty had to be on residential. We would have lectures in the morning, tutorials in the afternoon, if you wanted to access the faculty member. We had, unlike NGOs have training programs, we had a formal 1 week, every week we had an essay, and then we had a sort of larger, longer essay at the end of the term. It had an orientation was entirely socialist feminist, and every faculty member was a socialist feminist. So it was not open. It was not very restricted in terms of its ideology, very close, and it was then criticized for being exclusive. But it was by design. This continued till 2013, where we had. And the other thing that we would have is, from the very beginning, we decided that development is the unfolding of creativity. It's not economic or social sciences. So the unfolding of meant that you can. We had artists, we had theatre, we had woven into the program itself. It was so with our archives that we have, and I'm an archivist by nature or DNA. I keep everything, although I've thrown a lot of stuff in. Lums is a bit of upset with me that I've thrown a lot of stuff away. But really, when we decided that we would close shop, I said to the board that I can't go into this sort of funding where they tell me what to do. So either you get somebody else or we close it down. So we decided to close it down. We said, but what will we do with it after? How does it sustain itself? How does it get institutionalized? So we donated our library and our newspaper clippings, etc., to Government College, because Government College has a good history department and it's just opened a specialization in archiving. So we thought that there would work. It hasn't worked very well there because it's sort of, the library is very nice. It's got given us a huge room, not as big as this, but they've not got other departments involved, and other departments don't even know that this exists. So we decided on LUMS. I hesitated on for a long time, saying I don't want to go to a private elitist college, university. But so I did resist it, but then, people convinced me that that's where it could fulfill what you wanted it to fulfill. So what we've done is we have an MOU with LUMS, where all our video, audio, paintings, our records, our files, etc., will be digitized and kept here, and also to other universities. There's a lot of interest in this from friends at Harvard and friends at Columbia who will be coming and helping us set it up, and how to digitize it. Um, so we have a conference coming up in September, I think, in Colombo or somewhere, where we have other archivists coming and talking to us. It's the Saida Wahid Center is working towards a space, physical space for this, and we're definitely going to digitize it and put it online. And the other thing is that the important thing is that it's not an Asar or institute archive. It's just the agreement is that it will be a national women's archive. So the focus is on LUMS creating and getting other archives and connecting with other archives. Um, so it's essentially for researchers, activists, those who want to just get a sense of what was happening. Um, it's so that I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited that with both actually, even with government college, both they found a home and the onus is not on us to find monies, etc., etc. The institution will be the one that will take it forward. I will play a role in the sense of coming in, since I have the institutional memory of what it is and what's important or not, that I come in. And the other thing that they are trying to do is raise money for my colleague who's been with me for 25 years or something, so that she can continue at LUMS. So that will be a good continuity if that happens. We're hoping that this will all happen in the next few months, by August, September. And I hope that all of you will be at least intrigued by it. And because in that we have presentations on art, on music, and presentations meaning musharas, whatever we did, we filmed. And they're not very good films, but all our courses are on audio. 3-month courses are on audio, so you can actually go through the whole course. And all the conferences are on video. So I think I'll end with that. I'll keep half an hour for any questions you may have. And again, I apologize for this disoriented presentation, but I've just not been too well, and I've brought my oxygen with me. So sort of that. But basically, I wasn't focusing. Thank you very much.
So before, I mean, of course, I'm sure all of you have questions. I had a couple of questions that I really wanted to ask you. I think I want to launch in like at the deep end and sort of ask you about your work with the Democratic Women's Association, especially agitating against the military when East Pakistan was happening. And the reason I thought that that would be a good thing to open with is it's a constant conversation that we have in my class as well, which is, military's role in politics, how to negotiate that. So if you what advice or tools do you think for young activists exist in this conversation today when it comes to sort of pushing back military role?
Yes, very much. Very much. In fact, the onus is on you, um, because this is not something that's going to go away. We all know it's a very hybrid regime. We know that the military has played a role throughout, but the military, in my experience, has never had such a obvious central role. That, for example, it is officially on the economic committee, wears his uniform. We've never seen people wear their uniform and come to these. It's on the land committee. land distribution, it's on agriculture. I mean, it's everywhere. So you don't need a military coup, you don't need a military takeover because it has been taken over. You, I mean, you have the general commander in chief going and negotiating and talking to the IMF. You have, I mean, it's everywhere. So, in terms of 71, um, we were very excited. I was very excited that there was going to be an election. Finally, after getting rid of a youth plant, and so there was that palpable excitement everywhere. The results were also very good in the sense that the Awami League won the election and the People's Party, which was not meant to win, and because there are lots of Muslim leagues and the government was supporting Muslim leagues, but it won enough seats to be the largest party in West Pakistan. Um, but I don't need to go through the history of it. But on the 3rd of March, the 3rd of January, in Partab Maidan, Jibur Rahman reiterated his 6 points. My position on that is that he ran the election on the 6 points. And if you could let him run the election on the 6 points, how could you suddenly decide that that was treason? Because it was a totally open election. And that is in the manifesto. But on the 3rd of March, is the first army action in East Pakistan, where two of our commander-in-chief, who was General Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, and our governor, who was Admiral Essen, both objected to that and said they wouldn't do it. They would not fire. And they were brought back under martial law proceedings. I'm sorry, military court proceedings. Had to then leave the Navy and leave the Army. And then we had Yahya Khan, who went to East Pakistan. The 25th of March is when Operation Searchlight begins. And Operation Searchlight was literally a decimation. That is the night they went to the students' hostel and killed so many students. That is the night when they started firing at just about everybody. And I don't understand why people in West Pakistan didn't know what was happening. They often say we didn't know what was happening. Even at that time they were saying we don't know what's happening. But it was very clear what's happening to people. Like, if you wanted to know, we had the radio, so you could listen to BBC and you could listen to other radio channels, etc. We also had some information which we could get that military officers returning home. I mean, there were a few that I met up with and said what's really happening there. So they said this is what's happening, etc. So you could actually access them. I mean, not all of them, but one or two who were willing to speak. I was a member of the Maoist Mazdoor Kisan Party. And the Maoists were supporting or silent on the army action in East Pakistan. The ones who were active on it were the Democratic Women's Association and the more pro-Moscow groups. So in a way, I reneged from my position on Maoism and not joined as a member, but joined the campaign with the Democratic Women's Association. And we used to go out and give out pamphlets on the road, etc. And the viciousness with which we were attacked. I remember once we were going down Beaton Road and the houses on top threw garbage on us, dirty, whatever the garbage was, they threw it on us. They would spit on us. Um, we went to Kotlakpur, and Kotlakpur was a bit better because it's a workers' area. Um, but there was, and there was such an extreme silence from West Pakistan. I don't mean everybody, but extreme silence. Because there was this, I think it had been internalized that East Pakistanis were short and black and couldn't fight and uh, were compare, as it were, and were quite happy with the fact that East Pakistan had been used as a colony for West Pakistan all those years. Um, I could go into more details on this, but roughly this was the idea.
Do you have questions?
Yes, I assume that throughout all this time creating policies or working within activism, it couldn't have been easy dealing with a lot of the backlash we were getting. So how does one in a situation where you are advocating for civil rights keep, and this may not sound like the most coherent question, but keep morale up, help people to understand that what they're fighting for is worth that in the long run, and stop people from kind of leaving the cause because it's simply it's too much. And although understandably, that is a question that is on my mind.
It is too much, especially if you tend to be a small group, and it tends to become a small group, no matter how big you are, because you need to act fast. You, you need to sort of, and you tend to then have a few people who respond to your email or respond to Facebook or respond to Twitter, and they become then the core, not by design, but by default. Um, so you, and then, but I hear a lot more among your generation of burnout than we ever. We never called it burnout because we just thought we were tired, but we continued along that route. Um, I find a lot of younger people saying much earlier in their 20s and 30s, etc., that there's a burnout and I need time to myself. I wonder about that because if you, I think that what's also important is it an ideological position or is it an activist position? If it's ideological, then you have an end game. Then you're doing it at a different level of commitment, a different level of activism, a different level of involvement in that. And I think that one of the problems these days globally is that there's a lot of activism, but there's no ideology.
So Nadia asked me recently about the role of the military in civilian politics. So my question is this: the 90s ka law and military gets elected to power and it's seen to be a representation of people's will. That's fine, but then Nawaz Sharif comes to power. At that point, how does the Women's Action Forum, what position do they take over? Do we want to accept this government? Do we not want to? Do we engage with this government and on what terms? Because Nawaz Sharif was obviously sort of called in nursery, but they're very recent party and certain positions that they were taking as well. The Women's Action Forum accept that government is democratically elected and did they sort of engage with them in any way? And uske andar फिर क्या overtime change आता है? And then number two, obviously, the way, when Musharraf comes to power, there's criticism and all progressive who sort of protest against that, disengage with them. But at the same time, this very crucial piece of legislation, the Women's Protection Act of 2006, which undoes the youth ordinances, that's Musharraf legislation. So did the Women's Action Forum directly engage with the government at that point? Was it some other groups? Was there a split within the groups? What were the sort of internal conversations between both those levels?
I think that, I think the NGOs played a big role. The NGOs played a big role. They had projects to do this specifically. They, like the harassment bill was moved by a group called ASHA. And so, really, the credit goes to ASHA. It continued on that, whereas Women's Action Forum would give a few statements on it, but it didn't get actively involved in lobbying and in advocacy a bit, but not lobbying. I don't remember us ever going and talking to somebody about the harassment bill. Women's Protection Act, it was more involved in the sense of giving support to it. Um, it definitely took a stand throughout the Benazir to Musharraf years that the military should not be involved in any way. And so it took a position in 1999 against Musharraf. It took a position in 2001 against the war on terror. It took a position, and it had a democratic dispensation. It said that, whoever comes in, if they come in through the vote, we have to negotiate with it the way we would, or attack it, or demonstrate against it. We had, as I said earlier, a much more difficult time with Nawaz Sharif. Because Nawaz Sharif passed the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and he wanted to pass the 15th Amendment. We were very, very active in the 15th Amendment, which was when he wanted to, an amendment that he would, the Prime Minister would also be the religious head, like a Khalifa. That we worked against a lot. And but we had an advantage that there were some members of his own party who diluted it, and then in the Senate, Benazir had a lot of votes, so it never passed the Senate. So it out that this NGO has done this or that or whatever. One of them was that you don't pick up the issue of Kashmir, but you talk about the women of Pakistan. That was a stupid thing. You talk about the women of Pakistan, but you don't talk about the women of Kashmir. That was a critique of Aurat Foundation. But it's interesting that with only women's organizations, there wasn't a single male headed organization. All the women from the news, etc., too lost their jobs for women. So it was very women specific, those attacks.
Any other questions? So just like a final note and one last question, I kind of throughout your conversation and also the film that you showed, and we've had so many class discussions on this. I keep thinking that the way the state responds to feminist movements is so cyclical because you see the same patterns. I mean, you see so many patterns repeating themselves, even with the kind of slurs that are used. They're the same, right? Aurat March, foreign funded, Israeli terrorists, lesbians. I mean,
India.
India. None of the narrative actually changes. And even the charges, ये सारी divorces हैं, ये सारी एक किस्म की मतलब single ख्वातीन हैं जिनसे कोई शादी नहीं करना चाहता. All of that stuff kind of, it's so ingrained in the narrative. And when you were like bringing in, contrast between the two movements, I kind of kept wondering what you think is because even in kind of largely the structure of Aurat March, it's non-hierarchical, it's not funded, it doesn't have funding, it doesn't have an official office. But I think the one difference is that each of the chapters take out their own manifesto. There's not like a central committee that needs to go like coordinate before they can put out, their responses. So how do you see that panning out in the future? Like, do you see that as a vehicle forward, or do you think that there's some problems there, or like how do you view that?
I think there are problems there because Lahore, in my experience, Aurat March and Women's Action Forum in Lahore has a much more respectful involvement, inclusive, supportive, um, acknowledging, applauding, and very much Women's Action Forum founders like my age feeling very much a part of Aurat March. There's a sense of this is ours. Like I have this thing that I see this as I'm so fired by it because I see this as a continuity. This is really something that I didn't expect to see in my lifetime, and I'm seeing it, and so it may get derailed along the way. It may become something else, but nevertheless, it's a very important moment. And I would say that Women's Action Forum members and founders, particularly in Lahore, there is some tension in Karachi, and there's a tension in Islamabad. The tension in Hyderabad is that there's the Women's Democratic Association Front, the Women's Democratic Front, which is also the case in Islamabad. We don't have that here. We don't even have the organization here, chapter here. It's not in Karachi either. So we don't really have that problem. Islamabad does, Quetta doesn't, Peshawar doesn't, and Hyderabad does. But I think that, I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with 2 or 4 or 10 in the same rubric. So I don't get very disturbed by it. I only get disturbed when they attack each other. Recently there was a case where Women's Action Forum, I think, took a position against Women's Action Forum definitely, and against Aurat March. I said that was uncalled for, and it was an unnecessary division, tension. But I said, just to repeat it, that I find that it's a continuation, and it gives me a lot of energy. It gives me a lot of hope. But what is absolutely true as well is that Women's Action Forum here on the whole feels very appreciated. It's an actual appreciation, and that gives us the jazba, that if they had been separate from us, or we lost in the NGO world, in the NGO that period. We lost a lot of women, which happens in most cases. That you have a movement, and that movement makes certain gains, and then you have generations which take advantage of those gains and don't get involved, etc. So then you have the next movement, and then you have the gains of that movement. So it's after Women's Action Forum, and most of us will be in our 60s and 70s, the ones in their 50s or early 60s and 40s even were using the spaces that had been made but not getting involved. And they are the ones that we have more attention with, because they're also very critical of us, very critical.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.